A lot of people say to me, and I think you and I have discussed this in the past as well, that the industrial sector kind of missed cloud and the cloud revolution. And if I was to try and summarize what it is you want to do, you want to build the platform that would account for that. An easier place to start would be like, why did you need to raise more funds to do that, to move more quickly?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Ed. We've been busy since the last 10 months when I was in the studio for our last financing. So we're building a platform for hardware testing and operations, a fully integrated solution for the modern era. Frankly, we hadn't touched the $75 million of capital that we raised earlier last year, but when Founders Fund approaches you. They approached us late last year with an offer to lead a preemptive financing. I think you take it very seriously. They have a really unique position and vantage point in the industry, particularly for companies building hardware, and I think particularly an interesting insight into the work that we've been doing with Anduril, particularly, which we announced a few weeks ago.
So this is the join up. It was Trae that phoned you, presumably. Yeah. So this is the intersection of what you're working on every day, right? With Anduril as executive chair, but also like the types of companies you invest in through Founders Fund. I always note you separate those two when it comes to Anduril and Founders Fund's backing of them. But what was the thesis for you with Nominal? Why did you think that this was an important name to back?
Well, there's been an explosion in enterprise SaaS. There's a literal infinite number of companies that you could bring on to help with enterprise software kind of problems inside of an organization. But any reasonable, efficient organization is going to take an approach of trying to cut as much of that out as possible to minimize the spend for the org. So there are no nice-to-haves. Nice-to-have enterprise software is not good. At Anduril, we have a incredibly intense process coming from my co-founder, Matt Grimm, and our Chief Information Officer, Tom Bosco, who are constantly trying to weed out all of the excess spend. But in that same process, you come across software that's critical, things that you really, really need, it's worth the money, it's worth the time and effort. Nominal is one of those products that we use inside the enterprise. We were already investors at Founders Fund, but it certainly increased the conviction when you know that an organization that I obviously work day-to-day very closely with was adamant that we needed to have our hands on this.
Cameron, your background is fascinating, and also what's notable is how you talk about this mission-critical necessity for the software that you're building at the moment. I mean, front and center is the geopolitical issue that currently confronts us. How are you seeing engineers leaning on the software at the moment? How much are you thinking about this being ever more integral?
No, thank you, Caroline. Yeah, I think we think of Nominal as building very serious software and building on Trae's point in an era where the last 2 decades saw a lot of very unserious software optimized for .com era, signups, clicks, etc. But the engineers that use Nominal and trust it every single day, they're instrumenting hardware, they're automating very complex tasks, they're watching their hardware systems deployed in the field in operations, and so it has to work. It is the definition of mission critical, especially at a time when that's increasing and the world is moving faster and faster.
Automating complex tasks. Trae, that is at the heart of a disagreement that's currently upon us with Anthropic and the Pentagon, and we know that conversations have started again in private between those two entities. But how do you think about some of the ethical confrontation that consumer-focused AI, enterprise-focused AI is currently being confronted with its use in the military? This is something you've had to think about first and foremost ages ago with Anduril.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Being able to give our warfighters the capabilities that they need to be successful, not only in deterring conflict, but in winning conflict, if we would get to a point where we needed to do that, is incredibly important. And I think that there's nothing more ethical than engaging in good faith with our institutions, our democratic institutions, to make sure that American companies, leading American technology companies, are sitting alongside in partnership with those democratic institutions. So, super proud to do that at Anduril, and I know Cameron is super proud to do that at Nominal as well.
I'm trying to think how we can talk about what's happening in the war in Iran in the context of what Nominal actually does, right? The defense sector is a part of your customer base. And what I've been trying to understand with Nominal is it the software that is helping to manage the asset that is the factory, or the output of the factory. Like, that's quite an interesting distinction, because throughout the week we've been talking about the rundown of short-range, long-range munitions, the different technologies that are play in Iran. How would Nominal help make that process better?
Yeah, really, Ed, we're trying to own the end-to-end process. So really everything from the end of a manufacturing production line through to the experimentation, R&D, sort of lab testing of those systems, and then the end deployment. And a lot of the thesis behind Nominal is those have become very siloed operations, and you gain huge efficiency, speed, scale, reliability if you actually can link sort of with a common data platform that entire process. I always say, I said this last time I was on the show, the biggest, I think, tester and validator of advanced hardware systems is the U.S. Department of War, and we're very proud to support that mission. For us, it's we are an engineering tool, full stop, and so we try to give those who need it the best, most modern tools to support their mission.
Trae, you are the executive chair of Anduril. Could I ask simply if any Anduril technology has been deployed or used in Iran, and what the footprint is there, and also where Nominal kind of fits in managing that process?
Yeah, I mean, we have all sorts of primarily counter-air systems that are present in conflict zones. So we are actively working day-to-day with the department in ongoing operations. Obviously can't give a whole lot of details beyond that, but this is kind of one of the challenges of building a defense technology company, is that you don't build for the wars of yesterday or the wars of today. It takes time to integrate these things into concepts of operation. So the work that we're doing in the region is work that we've actually been doing for a long time. It's not that we just showed up, in the moment of the conflict. And I think that a lot of this goes to the test and evaluation operations, is getting to preparedness, so that you're not just building a technology demonstrator, but you're building something that's resilient and that is going to work in times of conflict. That requires a lot of reps, and it's much harder to do than it is with just doing like a sim for software. These things have lives and death, like they have human lives involved in them, and you can't afford to make mistakes. So we're super proud to partner with Nominal to make sure that we're ready. We're ready for game time when that shows up, like it has in Iran.
Trae, can I also ask you, Bloomberg reported this week that Anduril is looking to raise about $4 billion with Andreessen and Thrive co-leading the round. A comment on that, but also what is it that Anduril needs funding for right now? You're building in Ohio, you're expanding in California.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. The challenge is going from being a defense technology company where you're building thousands of things to being a defense manufacturing juggernaut where you're building tens of thousands of things. I can't think of a whole lot of companies in the last 20 years, new companies, that have set up mass-scale manufacturing. Maybe Tesla is the only real example. Anduril is on the path to, trying to be number 2 in that space, and that's going to require a lot of capital, and it's going to require partnership from the department to get that off the ground, which is
Department of War.
The Department of War, which is where we are right now, and it will require partnership with companies like Nominal as well to make sure that we are fielding capable systems and we're scaling in a way where we're delivering a functioning capability rather than just a technology demonstrator or prototype.
Cameron, I referenced that you had a fascinating background. You worked at Anduril yourself. You've been an investor yourself at Lux. You've also been heading up Sail Drone as well, you were head of defense for Sail Drone, an autonomous maritime company. So you've been thinking about all of these questions that currently investors, builders, and the community writ large are thinking about. What was the signal you think has been sent by the Pentagon with its feud with Anthropic, and how does it make you feel building alongside the government at the moment?
Yeah, I think we at Nominal, we think a lot about where AI will intersect with our technology area, and I think the unfortunate reality is in the industrial sector and the hardware world, much of the software and technology is so antiquated that it is just now, I think, becoming AI ready and AI adjacent. And we are working to help a lot of our customers operationalize that technology. I think in terms of partnerships with the Department of War, the messages that we get loud and clear are speed and scale are paramount, and Nominal plays a huge part in helping all types of companies field those systems to meet that resilient need.